Ada Vance felt the air in the conference room thickening with every passing second. The long, polished, dark oak table reflected the cold fluorescent lights overhead, creating sharp, unforgiving lines across its surface. She sat near the middle, posture straight as always, her tablet propped in front of her like a loyal soldier, ready to capture every command. Her fingers moved across the glass screen with practiced precision, transcribing Silas Kincaid's words in real time. The CEO stood at the head of the table, broad-shouldered and impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. His voice carried the calm authority of someone who had spent decades learning exactly how much weight each syllable should carry. "Shipments must receive final approval no later than the 15th, he stated, letting his gaze travel slowly around the room, making eye contact with every person present. No delays. Not one container, not one truck, not one invoice left pending. Ada?" He turned directly to her. "Make that a separate action item. Bold it. I want it at the top of the follow-up summary." She nodded once, crisp and professional. "Yes, Mr. Kincaid." Her fingers tapped the instruction into the document, but something felt off. The keys beneath her fingertips seemed to slip, as though the screen had suddenly turned slick. The letters blurred for a fraction of a second. She blinked hard, refocused, and continued typing. She told herself it was nothing, just exhaustion. The last 14 days had been relentless. The quarterly financial reconciliation, 3 rounds of negotiations with overseas freight partners, daily briefings that stretched into the evening, endless email chains that demanded immediate responses. Ada was no stranger to pressure. As executive assistant to the CEO of one of the region's largest logistics firms, she had built her reputation on thriving under it. 3 years in the role had transformed her from a capable newcomer into the quiet, indispensable center of gravity for multiple departments. Silas relied on her memory, her anticipation, her ability to keep 37 concurrent work streams from colliding. He was demanding, yes, but fair. He never raised his voice without reason, never belittled, never forgot to acknowledge good work. That made the weight of his expectations bearable, almost honorable. Across the table, Iris Consinkid, Silas's older sister and the company's HR director, made neat notes in her leather-bound planner. At 50, Iris remained the picture of disciplined elegance. Tailored navy blazer, single strand of pearls, hair pulled into a flawless low chignon. She rarely smiled during meetings, but when she did, it felt earned. Ada had always admired that composure, the way Iris could sit in the middle of chaos and still appear untouched by it. Silas continued, "Iris, loop in HR on the staffing expansion. We need 2 more client relations managers, ideally, with proven international logistics experience. Forward-facing, multilingual if possible. I want shortlisted candidates by the end of next week." Iris gave a single nod, pen moving steadily. Ada tried to keep typing, but the pounding in her temples had grown teeth. A strange heaviness settled across her chest, like someone had laid a flat stone over her sternum, and was gradually increasing the pressure. She drew a slow breath, willing it to pass. "Just lack of sleep," she repeated silently. "You'll be fine after lunch." She had said the same thing yesterday, and the day before. The room suddenly tilted, not dramatically, just enough to make the far wall slide left while the near wall slid right. Ada gripped the edge of the table, knuckles paling. Her heart lurched into a frantic, uneven gallop. Each beat felt too loud, too close to her ears. Sweat broke across her forehead, despite the perfectly controlled 22-degree temperature of the room. Silas's voice came from farther away now, as though filtered through water. "Ada, can you hear me?" She forced her head up, forced a small, tight smile. "Yes, of course. Sorry, it's just a little warm in here. Maybe if we open a window." She hated how thin her voice sounded. Silas's brows drew together. "No need to apologize. Step out if you need air. We can pause." "I'll be right back," she managed. She stood too quickly. The floor seemed to roll beneath her heels. Her knees buckled for one. Terrifying instant before she caught herself against the chair back. Every pair of eyes in the room followed her. Concern from some, curiosity from others, quiet sympathy from the rest. She walked, slowly, deliberately, toward the double doors, each step requiring more concentration than it should. The latch clicked behind her with a soft finality. In the corridor, she leaned against the cool marble wall and closed her eyes. Breathe. Just breathe. It didn't help. The pressure in her chest intensified. Her vision narrowed at the edges, dark curtains creeping inward. Her hands shook so violently she pressed them against her thighs to hide it. I need to get outside. She moved on autopilot past her own workstation, the tidy L-shaped desk. Dual monitors, 3 neat stacks of folders. The small pot of African violets she watered every Monday morning without fail. She scooped her phone and purse, draped a light cardigan over her shoulders, even though she wasn't cold, and headed for the elevators. Sierra, the receptionist on the ground floor, half stood when she saw her. "Miss Vance? Are you okay? Should I get you water? Or call someone?" "Thanks, Sierra. No need. Just stepping out for 5 minutes." The elevator doors opened with their familiar soft chime. Ada stepped inside. The mirrored walls threw back a stranger, skin ashen against her usual warm brown tone, sweat beading along her hairline, eyes wide and glassy. She barely recognized herself. The ride down felt endless. When the doors finally parted, she walked straight through the gleaming lobby and pushed out into April air. A light breeze carried the scent of opening buds and distant cut grass, but the relief she expected never arrived. If anything, the weakness deepened. Her legs turned soft, unreliable. The world tilted again, harder this time. She barely reached the wooden bench at the edge of the small plaza beside the building. Before her knees gave way completely, Ada sank onto the seat, eyes closing, head dropping forward. Her heart hammered wildly, trying to escape her ribs. Each breath felt stolen, shallow, insufficient. A high ringing filled her ears. The sounds of the city, traffic, distant voices, someone laughing, faded into an unreal, watery haze. What is happening to me? She pried her eyelids open just enough to see a blurry shape leaning over her. An older man, 70. Maybe older, gray jacket, knit cap, face deeply lined with concern. Strong, weathered hands reached toward her wrist. Instinct made her jerk back. "What are you doing?" "That bracelet," he said quietly, voice low and steady. "Are you feeling sick because of it?" Ada looked down. The thin silver chain still encircled her wrist. Magnetic inserts catching the light. Victor's gift. 3 months old now. Elegant, expensive, supposedly therapeutic. She tried to focus. "Who are you? Why would you try to take it off?" The man didn't retreat. Instead, he straightened, reached into an inner pocket, and produced a worn, dark red identification folder. Arthur P. Vaughn, retired cardiologist. 40 years at Mercy. General. He opened it just long. Enough for her to see the faded photo, the official stamps, the signature of the chief of staff from the late 1990s. I've seen more cases than I can count where trinkets like that did far more harm than good. Ada struggled to make the words stay still on the card. "My husband gave it to me," she whispered. "He said it helps, improves circulation, supports heart function." Arthur's expression softened, but his eyes remained sharp. "How long have you worn it constantly?" 3 months, mid-January. "And when did symptoms like this start?" She had to think through the fog. 2, maybe 3 weeks after he gave it to me. At first I blamed stress, annual audit prep. Then it happened more often, once a week, then twice, lately, almost daily. He nodded slowly. "Not a coincidence, I suspect." Her phone buzzed against her hip. "Victor," she answered with trembling fingers. "Hello? Where are you?" His tone was sharp, edged with irritation. Silas called. "Said you left the meeting and didn't come back." I felt sick. "I'm outside, on a bench." A long exhale. "Did you take the bracelet off?" She glanced at her wrist. The metal gleamed against her skin. "No." "Then what's the problem?" "You know it helps. You're probably just overworked again. Go home, rest. I'll finish early, pick up groceries, make dinner." "Okay," she murmured automatically. "Okay." She ended the call. Arthur watched her with quiet sympathy. "That was him?" She nodded. "Listen to me, young lady," he said gently. "Go to a clinic, today, get checked properly. And take that thing off, at least for a few hours. See how you feel without it." Ada hesitated. Victor had always insisted never remove it. The effect required constant contact. He checked every morning, got upset, quietly, reasonably upset, whenever she forgot. Once she had taken it off before a shower and left it on the sink. He hadn't noticed until evening, then spent nearly an hour explaining how crucial continuous wear was. But right now her chest hurt so badly she could hardly draw breath. Fingers shaking, she undid the clasp. The bracelet came away warm from her skin, surprisingly heavy in her palm. She slipped it into her blazer pocket. Within 60 seconds, the iron band around her ribs loosened, just a fraction, but enough to notice. Air reached deeper into her lungs. The frantic hammering in her chest began, very slowly, to steady. She stared at the empty place on her wrist. "Thank you," she whispered. Arthur smiled, a small, kind, paternal smile. "Health is the only thing that truly belongs to you," he said quietly. "Don't let anyone manage it for you. Not even the people you love most." He adjusted his cap, picked up his slow, careful pace, and walked away down the path. Ada remained on the bench for several more minutes, feeling life creep back into her limbs. Her thoughts spun. What if Victor knew? No, impossible. He loved her. He worried about her. He wouldn't. But the question lingered, quiet, persistent, dangerous. Why had he insisted so strongly? Why had he become agitated every single time she even considered removing it? And why, knowing about her tachycardia, diagnosis, had he bought her a magnetic bracelet in the first place? She stood slowly. The dizziness had eased. Her heartbeat felt almost normal. She took out her phone, found Silas Concade's number, and dialed. "Ada." His voice came through warm with concern. "How are you feeling?" "Better. Thank you, Mr. Concade. I'm sorry for leaving the meeting." "May I take the rest of the day?" "I need to see a doctor." "Of course. Take whatever time you need. Health first. Everything else waits." She thanked him again and ended the call. Then she walked, slowly, deliberately, toward the parking lot. The bracelet lay silent in her pocket. For the first time in 3 months, her wrist felt strangely light and frighteningly free. Ada sat behind the wheel of her silver sedan, engine off, keys still dangling from her fingers. The parking garage beneath the business center smelled faintly of concrete dust and motor oil. Outside, the April sun filtered through the exit ramp in thin, slanted bars, but inside the car the light felt muted, almost gray. She stared at her bare wrist. The skin there looked strangely naked, paler, in a thin rectangular band where the bracelet had rested for 3 unbroken months. Not un line, just the faint impression of metal that had pressed against her day and night. She touched the spot with her fingertips. It felt cool, exposed. Her phone buzzed once against the center console. A text notification. "Victor." She didn't pick it up right away. Instead, she leaned her head back against the headrest and closed her eyes, letting the quiet settle over her like a blanket. For the first time in weeks, the pounding in her temples had receded to a dull, background hum. Her breathing came easier, deeper, without that invisible weight sitting on her sternum. It should have felt like relief. It felt like betrayal. She opened her eyes again and started the engine. She didn't head home. Home meant Victor, his questions, his concern that always carried an edge, his careful inspection of her wrist the moment she walked through the door. Home meant explanations she wasn't ready to give. Instead, she turned toward the riverfront. The drive took 20 minutes. Traffic was light. It was still mid-morning on a Thursday. She parked in one of the angled spaces along the promenade, killed the engine, and stepped out. A steady breeze came off the water, carrying the clean, mineral scent of the river mixed with the green smell of new leaves. The path beside the bank was nearly empty, only a few joggers, an elderly couple walking a small dog, a delivery cyclist pedaling past with earbuds in. Ada followed the paved trail until she reached the small cafe she sometimes escaped to during lunch breaks, a modest glass and wood structure called Riverside Brew. She had never come here alone on a weekday morning. She ordered peppermint, tea, caffeine felt like a risk, today, and carried the steaming mug to a corner table by the window. The river moved slowly below her, slate gray and glassy, reflecting the overcast sky. On the far bank, old brick warehouses had been converted into loft apartments. Their windows caught stray sunlight and flashed like signals. Ada wrapped both hands around the mug and let the warmth seep into her palms. She tried to remember exactly when the change had started. Mid-January. Victor had come home from a 3-day sales conference in Chicago, carrying a small velvet box. They had been married 18 months by then. Life had felt solid, comfortable routines, shared grocery lists, quiet evenings on the couch watching documentaries. He traveled more than she did, but he always brought something back, a bottle of local gin, a scarf in her favorite shade of plum. Once even a tiny porcelain bird, he said, reminded him of her. That night he'd waited until they finished the apple pie she'd baked. The kitchen still smelled of cinnamon and brown sugar. He slid the box across the table with the same careful smile he used when handing her a surprise weekend itinerary. Open it. Inside lay the bracelet, delicate silver chain, small magnetic inserts set at regular intervals like polished rice grains. It caught the overhead light and threw tiny prisms across the tabletop. For you, he said, voice soft. I've been worrying since that cardiologist appointment last spring. You work so hard, you get stressed, your heart races sometimes. I found someone who specializes in these therapeutic devices. It's not just jewelry. The magnetic field improves circulation, stabilizes rhythm. Wear it all the time. The effect builds with constant contact. She had been touched, deeply. Victor remembered things she forgot about herself. He noticed when her shoulders tightened after long calls. He made her chamomile when she couldn't sleep. He had sat beside her in the cardiologist's waiting room a year earlier, holding her hand while the doctor explained sinus tachycardia. Nothing immediately dangerous, just a tendency toward rapid heart rate under stress. Manage lifestyle factors, the doctor had said. Avoid stimulants, prioritize rest. Victor had listened intently, asked intelligent follow-up questions, thanked the doctor by name. Afterward, he drove them home in silence, then spent the evening researching low-impact exercise routines and meal plans rich in magnesium. So when he gave her the bracelet, she hadn't questioned it. She had hugged him, kissed him, let him fasten the clasp himself, his fingers warm against the inside of her wrist. Promise me you won't take it off, he'd said, half teasing, half serious. I worry about you. I promise. And she had kept it. Night and day, showers, sleep, work, workouts. She wore it through everything. Victor checked every morning before she left for the office. Bracelet on? Yes. Good girl. I worry about you so much. At first it felt protective. Later it became routine. Now sitting alone in the cafe with the chain folded inside her blazer pocket, it felt like something else entirely. She pulled out her phone. 17 unread messages, all from Victor. She opened the thread. Where are you? Silas said you left early. Everything okay? Ada, answer me. I'm starting to worry. You know I hate when you go silent. Call me when you can. Please. I love you. She stared at the last line. I love you. He said it every day. Text, voice note, whispered against her temple before sleep. He cooked dinner when she worked late. He handled the bills, serviced both cars, remembered every anniversary down to the month they first held hands. He was attentive, reliable, the kind of husband other women envied. So why did her stomach twist when she read those words now? She set the phone face down on the table. She needed facts, not feelings. She opened the browser and typed, magnetic bracelet tachycardia. The results loaded instantly, articles from medical journals, warnings from the American Heart Association, consumer protection sites listing magnet therapy devices as unproven at best, actively harmful at worst for people with cardiac conditions. One page from a university hospital cardiology department stated in bold, magnetic fields can interfere with cardiac conduction pathways, especially in patients with pre-existing arrhythmias. Contraindicated in sinus tachycardia, supraventricular tachycardia, and any history of palpitations. She read the paragraph twice. Then she searched the name of the company. Victor had mentioned, once, the one he said specialized in therapeutic wearables. The website looked professional. Clean white background, smiling models wearing bracelets and anklets. Testimonials in italic script. But the footer listed no medical certifications, no FDA clearance, just a vague claim of natural wellness support. Her tea had gone cold. She looked at the clock. 12:47 p.m. The appointment at Heartland Cardiology was at 4:30. 4 hours to wait. She didn't want to go home. Victor would be finishing his day soon. He'd ask questions, notice the missing bracelet, press for details in that calm, reasonable tone that always made her feel like she was overreacting. She needed space. She needed to think. She paid for the tea, left a tip in the jar, and walked back to the car. The river looked different now, darker, slower. Clouds had thickened overhead. She drove aimlessly for a while, looping through quiet residential streets, past houses with blooming azaleas and children riding bikes on the sidewalk. Eventually, she pulled into a small public lot near a playground and turned off the engine again. She took out a small notebook she kept in the glove compartment, normally used for meeting notes or grocery lists. She flipped to a blank page. At the top, She wrote one word in careful block letters. Timeline. Then she began. January 15th, Victor gives bracelet. Insists on constant wear. January 28th, first dizzy spell at work. Blamed it on long hours. February 10th, episodes more frequent, headaches. Victor says rest more. February 22nd, suggested another cardiologist visit. Victor, the bracelet is working. Save the money. March 8th, took bracelet off for shower, forgot to put it back on. Victor upset, hour-long lecture about consistency. March 20th, chest pressure becomes daily, taking painkillers to get through meetings. April 2, today, collapse in plaza. Retired cardiologist warns about bracelet. Took it off. Immediate improvement. She stared at the list. Each bullet felt heavier than the last. She added one final line, pressing so hard the pen tore the paper slightly. Victor was at the cardiologist appointment in April last year. He heard tachycardia. He knew. The notebook trembled in her hands. She closed it. Her phone buzzed again. Victor. This time a call. She watched the screen light up with his name. The phone vibrated against the console. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then went to voicemail. A minute later, a new text. Ada, I'm worried sick. Where are you? Call me back, please. She typed a short reply with shaking fingers. Took a walk. Need some air. I'll be home soon. She hit send before she could overthink it. His response came almost instantly. Okay, I'll start dinner. Drive safe, love you. She locked the screen and dropped the phone into her purse. The clock on the dashboard read 2:15. Still 2 hours until the appointment. She started the car again and drove toward downtown. Heartland Cardiology Center occupied the 6th and 7th floors of a sleek glass tower. The lobby smelled of antiseptic and fresh coffee. The receptionist, same woman who had booked her appointment, recognized her name immediately. Ms. Vance, Dr. Mercer is expecting you. Room 307, 3rd floor. Ada took the elevator up. The hallway was quiet, carpeted in soft gray. She knocked lightly on the door marked 307. Come in. Dr. Mercer was in her mid-40s, short dark hair, calm brown eyes behind wire-framed glasses. She rose from behind the desk and offered a firm handshake. Ada, good to see you again. Sit down. Tell me what's been happening. Ada sat. And then she told her everything. The bracelet. The insistence on constant wear. The worsening symptoms. The old doctor in the plaza. The immediate relief after removal. Victor's reaction every time she even mentioned seeing a cardiologist again. Dr. Mercer listened without interrupting, occasionally jotting notes on a pad. When Ada finished, the doctor leaned forward. May I see the bracelet? Ada took it from her pocket and placed it on the desk. Dr. Mercer picked it up, turned it over, tested the weight of the magnetic inserts. Strong, she murmured. Stronger than most consumer-grade devices. She set it down. You have documented sinus tachycardia from last year, correct? Yes, you saw me then. I remember. Mild, manageable with lifestyle changes. No medication required at the time. She paused. Magnetic fields are not benign for everyone. In patients with rhythm disorders, they can provoke ectopic beats, exacerbate tachycardia, even trigger more serious arrhythmias in rare cases. For you, with your history, this would be contraindicated. Ada felt something cold slide down her spine. So it was? Hurting me. Very likely. Contributing to every symptom you described. Dr. Mercer opened a drawer and pulled out a referral pad. We're doing an EKG right now. Then I want a 24-hour Holter monitor starting tomorrow and an echocardiogram the day after. We need to see if there's been any lasting impact. Ada nodded numbly. The EKG took 10 minutes. She lay on the exam table, cold gel on her chest, wires trailing to the machine. The paper strip printed out in neat, jagged lines. Dr. Mercer studied it for a long moment. Right now your rhythm is stable, she said finally. Mild tachycardia still present but controlled. No acute abnormalities. You've only been without the bracelet for, 5-6 hours? About that. And how do you feel compared to this morning? Better, much better. The pressure is gone. I can breathe normally. Dr. Mercer nodded. That's telling. I'm writing you a formal report. Diagnosis, sinus tachycardia. Magnetic devices strictly contraindicated due to risk of rhythm destabilization. I'm also noting probable causal relationship between prolonged wear and symptom exacerbation. She printed the page, stamped it, signed it. Ada took it with both hands. Official letterhead. Clinic seal. Black ink. Proof. Dr. Mercer met her eyes. One more thing. I'm not allowed to interfere in personal matters, but I have to say this. If someone knew about your diagnosis and still gave you an item that is clearly contraindicated, she let the sentence hang. That's not care. That's something else. If you ever feel unsafe or if the pressure continues, there are resources. I can give you numbers. Ada swallowed. Thank you. She left the office with the report folded carefully in her purse, the bracelet still in her pocket like a small, poisonous artifact. In the elevator, she turned her phone off silent. 23 missed calls, all Victor. She didn't listen to the voicemails. She simply texted one line. At the cardiologist. Driving home now. We need to talk. His reply appeared within seconds. Finally, I'm waiting. Ada leaned her forehead against the cool metal wall of the elevator and closed her eyes. The doors opened on the ground floor. She stepped out into the late afternoon light. The drive home felt shorter than it should have. Every traffic light seemed to turn green just as she approached. She parked in her assigned spot, killed the engine, and sat for a full minute listening to the ticking of the cooling motor. Then she picked up her purse, felt the weight of the folded report inside it, and walked toward the building entrance, up 5 floors in the elevator, down the carpeted hallway. Key in the lock. The door opened. The apartment smelled of onions and garlic. Victor was cooking. Ada paused in the doorway, one hand still on the knob, the other clutching the strap of her purse so tightly the leather creaked. The apartment smelled strongly of sautéed onions, garlic, and the faint sweetness of whatever sauce Victor was reducing on the stove. Warm light spilled from the kitchen into the hallway, but it didn't feel welcoming tonight. It felt staged. Victor turned from the range, wooden spoon in hand. He was still in his work clothes, navy slacks, pale blue button-down with the sleeves, rolled to the elbows, but he had loosened his tie and unbuttoned the top 2 buttons. The domestic picture he presented was almost perfect. There you are, he said, offering the same smile he always used when she came home late. I was starting to think you'd gotten lost. The smile faltered when he noticed she hadn't moved from the threshold. You okay? Ada closed the door behind her. The click sounded louder than usual. We need to talk. Victor set the spoon down and wiped his hands on a dish towel. His movements were deliberate, unhurried. Okay. He leaned back against the counter, arms crossing loosely over his chest. Talk. She walked into the living room, stopping near the coffee table, close enough to speak normally, far enough to keep space between them. She reached into her purse, pulled out the folded medical report, and placed it on the glass surface. Read this. Victor didn't move at first. Then he stepped forward, picked up the sheet, and scanned it. His expression shifted in stages. Mild confusion, faint irritation, then something harder, colder. He let the paper fall back onto the table. What is this? It's from Dr. Mercer at Heartland Cardiology. Official diagnosis. Sinus tachycardia, same as last year. Magnetic devices are strictly contraindicated. Prolonged exposure likely caused or worsened my symptoms. Victor gave a short, disbelieving laugh. Some doctor scribbles a note and suddenly I'm the bad guy. I bought you an expensive gift to help you. You're twisting this. You were at the appointment last April, Ada said quietly. You heard the cardiologist say tachycardia? You took notes on your phone? You asked about triggers. You knew. His jaw tightened. I'm not a doctor, Ada. I'm a sales manager. I trusted what the seller told me, that it was safe, therapeutic, beneficial for circulation and heart rhythm. If it didn't work the way they claimed, that's on them, not me. You never once suggested. I go back to a real cardiologist after I started feeling worse. You told me to rest more. You said the bracelet was enough. You got angry, actually angry, when I took it off even for a shower. Victor exhaled through his nose, a sharp sound. Because you don't take care of yourself. You push too hard. You skip meals, you stay up late answering emails, you let work eat you alive. I was trying to protect you. Someone had to. Protect me? The word tasted bitter. By forcing me to wear something that was making me sick? It wasn't forcing. It was encouraging. I care about you, more than you seem to realize lately. Ada felt the anger rise, clean, bright, unfamiliar. Caring isn't control. Caring doesn't dismiss doctors. Caring doesn't threaten me when I say I'm going to get checked. Victor's eyes narrowed. Threaten you? When I told you I was seeing the cardiologist today, you said, this will end badly. You said I wasn't listening to you. You raised your voice. I was worried. You were angry. He took a step closer. Not aggressive, but closing distance. You're reading everything wrong. You're tired? Stressed? You've been through a lot today. Let's eat. We'll sit down, talk calmly, figure this out. I'm not hungry. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the bracelet. The silver chain dangled from her fingers like a dead thing. She set it on the table beside the medical report. I'm not wearing this anymore. Victor stared at it, then at her. You're making a mistake. No, I'm correcting one. He picked up the bracelet, turned it over in his palm, then closed his fist around it. You think you can just walk away from everything I've done for you? The apartment, the stability, the life we built. You think you'll be fine without me? I'll be fine without the bracelet. That's a start. His voice dropped, almost soft. You're not thinking clearly. You're letting one bad day rewrite 2.5 years. I've been thinking clearly for the first time in months. Silence stretched between them, thick, electric. Then Victor spoke again, quieter still. If you walk out that door tonight, don't expect me to make it easy for you to come back. I'm not planning to come back. The words hung there, solid and final. Victor's face changed, something cracked behind his eyes. Not sorrow, not regret, something closer to panic. You're serious? Yes. He exhaled, rubbed a hand over his jaw. Okay, fine. You want to play this game? Go ahead. But remember who's been holding everything together. The mortgage, the car payments, your nice office job that only exists because of the network I helped you build. Ada felt her spine stiffen. My job exists because I'm good at it, not because of you. He gave a bitter half-smile. Keep telling yourself that. She turned toward the bedroom. Victor followed. Where are you going? To pack a few things. You're not leaving tonight. She didn't answer. She pulled her gym bag from the closet shelf and began folding. Clothes, underwear, jeans, 2 sweaters, pajamas, methodical, calm. Victor stood in the doorway, blocking the exit. Ada, stop. She zipped the bag. Move! No. She met his eyes. For the first time in their marriage, she saw something raw there, fear of losing control. Not fear of losing her. Let me go, Victor. You're not thinking... She stepped forward. He didn't budge. She placed both hands on his chest and pushed, hard. Victor stumbled back 1 step. Ada walked past him, grabbed her purse, the gym bag, her keys, and headed for the front door. He caught up in 3 long strides, grabbed her upper arm. You don't walk out on me. She yanked free. Don't touch me. His face flushed dark red. You'll regret this. She opened the door. Maybe, but not as much as I regret staying. She stepped into the hallway. The door slammed behind her. She didn't wait for the elevator. She took the stairs, 5 flights, heart pounding, legs shaking but moving. When she reached the parking garage, she was breathing hard, but not from the bracelet, from adrenaline, from freedom. She drove straight to Iris Consencade's house. Iris answered the door in a soft gray cardigan, hair already down for the evening. She took one look at Ada's face and pulled her inside without a word. They sat at the kitchen island. Iris poured chamomile tea. Ada told her everything. The report, the confrontation, the escape. When she finished, Iris was quiet for a long moment. What he did is psychological abuse, she said finally. Control disguised as care, undermining your health, isolating you, threatening you when you tried to leave. You did the right thing getting out tonight. Ada stared into her tea. I don't even know what comes next. Tomorrow we start with leave. I'll handle the paperwork with Silas. After that, legal advice, safety, a plan. You're not alone in this. That night, Ada slept in Iris's guest room on crisp white. Sheets that smelled faintly of lavender. She dreamed of breathing, deep, slow, unrestricted breaths, and woke up crying because it felt like something she hadn't done in years. The next morning, Iris made pancakes. While Ada ate, Iris called Silas. 2 weeks paid leave. No questions asked. Later that day, Ada met Eleanor Tate, the family lawyer Iris recommended. Eleanor listened to the entire story without flinching. When Ada finished, the lawyer leaned forward. You have grounds for divorce based on irreconcilable differences, aggravated by documented psychological abuse and endangerment of health. The medical reports are strong evidence. We'll file quickly. In the meantime, no contact without witnesses or recordings. Document everything he sends or says. Ada signed the initial paperwork that afternoon. Over the next weeks, she lived in a strange, suspended calm. Victor tried. Calls from unknown numbers. Long messages alternating between pleading and veiled threats. She blocked each one and forwarded screenshots to Eleanor. The Halter monitor confirmed what Dr. Mercer suspected. Multiple episodes of rhythm disturbance during the month she wore the bracelet. No permanent damage, just in time. The court date came on May 10th. Ada walked into the courtroom beside Eleanor, spine straight, hands steady. Victor sat across the aisle in a dark suit, flanked by his own attorney. He didn't look at her once during the preliminaries. The judge, a woman in her late 50s with sharp eyes and no patience for theatrics, read the filings, listened to both sides, played the recorded threat. Victor tried to explain it away as emotion. The judge didn't buy it. Marriage dissolved. No reconciliation period assigned. Decision effective in 30 days. Ada walked out into blinding spring sunlight. She cried in the parking lot, not from grief, but from the sudden, overwhelming absence of pressure. A month later, she held the official divorce certificate in her new rented studio. Apartment, small, simple, hers. She returned to work in June. Silas welcomed her with a firm handshake and an offer she hadn't expected. Vice President of Administration. She accepted. In early July, she sat on the same bench outside the office where she had first met Arthur Vaughn. She was drinking iced coffee and reading when she saw him walking slowly along the path, cane tapping. "Arthur!" He turned, squinted, then smiled wide. The bracelet girl. She stood and hugged him, carefully, gratefully. "I divorced him. I'm free. I got promoted. I breathe differently now." He sat beside her. "I see it. You're breathing on your own terms." They talked for 20 minutes, quietly, easily. When he stood to leave, he patted her hand. "Keep choosing yourself, young lady. No one else gets to decide how you breathe." She watched him walk away, then turned back toward the building. Work waited. Friends waited. A life waited. One she would build piece by piece, day by day, breath by breath. No bracelet, no control, just Ada, free.